I left after an hour, and I told him that I had other plans.
It's well documented in Tom Bower's Revenge that the book The Rules was one of Meghan Markle's favorite books. And if you've ever watched her in interviews or seen how she handled her relationship with Harry, you'll see why. A lot of people have been asking for a book club or breakdown series on this book, so let's do it. I'm starting with chapter 1, and even just a few lines in, the red flags are waving right off the bat. The book glorifies emotional manipulation as strategy. One of the first rules we're taught is end the first date so he wants you more. And what did Megan say in her Netflix series? That she ended her date with Harry early, didn't cancel her plans, and just left? Coincidence? Maybe. But if this book really shaped her dating strategy, then we're going to see a whole lot more tactics show up as we keep going. So let's get into it, but before we begin, here's the intro. Welcome to Revealing the Narc. Join me as I highlight narcissistic traits in celebrities and public figures. Everything here is in my opinion and not professional advice. If you enjoy the analysis, please like and subscribe. I mentioned in the introduction that this was well documented in Tom Bower's book Revenge. So I'm going to read a little quote from you from that book. It says, it begins, later boyfriends were rated by a self-help dating Bible called The Rules, subtitled Time-Tested Secrets for Capturing the Heart of Mr. Right, written for women seeking marriage in the shortest time available. Meghan acquired a copy soon after its publication in 1995 and brought the book to the campus. By then, she could recite passages by heart. There it is. So she really felt a pull for this book. She really studied this book. And I think just after reading chapter 1, you'll all see with me, she's already used one strategy. I do want to mention that I know that I'm a faceless account, so it's not very exciting maybe to go through a book club with me because there's not going to be a whole lot shown on screen. And I just want to acknowledge that for you. But I think our discussion is going to be so interesting that I think that'll keep you around. But again, this is a work in progress. Please leave me any feedback you have, and I'll see how I can improve it as we go through this book. So the first chapter of the book is called The History of the Rules. Before we get into the book, let me give you a little bit of history about the authors and when it was written. So it was written in 1995 by two women, Ellen Fain and Sherry Schneider. Neither of them were psychologists or therapists. One worked in marketing, the other was a freelance writer. But what did they have? They had a ton of dating war stories from their friends and a shared belief that modern women still needed old school tactics to land a man. They basically took advice that had been passed around socially, things like don't call him first and make him chase you, and they turned it into a formal system. Their whole thing was this: if you want commitment, you have to be strategic. That means no initiating, no being too available, and definitely no showing your cards too early. The book became a huge bestseller, but it also sparked backlash. Critics said it was manipulative, outdated, even anti feminist, but fans swore it worked. And that is where it brings us back to Meghan. If The Rules really was one of her favorite books, then maybe the moves we saw, the early date exit, the polished mystery, all this control over image, maybe they weren't instinctual at all, but they were scripted. Okay, let's get into it. So the book begins, no one seems to remember exactly how the rules got started, but we think they began circa 1917 with Melanie's grandmother, who made men wait nervously in her parents' parlor in a small suburb of Michigan. Back then, they called it playing hard to get. Whatever you call it, she had more marriage proposal than shoes. Grandma passed on her know-how to Melanie's mother, who passed it on to Melanie. It had been a family treasure for nearly a century, but when Melanie got married in 1981, she freely offered this old-fashioned advice to her single college friends and coworkers like us. And you'll see this is a theme of this chapter. They're continuously talking about how this was just a well-known secret. It was all traveled word by mouth, and nobody had it ever written down. And now finally you get to have it in your own hands. The other thing I want to mention is it says here that grandma had more proposals than shoes. Well, there could be many reasons for that. It doesn't necessarily have to be that she kept people waiting in the parlor. It just really, I don't know, that rubs me the wrong way. The book continues. At first, Melanie whispered the rules. After all, modern women aren't to talk loudly about wanting to get married. We had grown up dreaming about being the president of the company, not the wife of the president. So we quietly passed the rules on from friend to friend, somewhat embarrassed because they seemed so, well, 1950s. Still, we had to face it. As much as we love being powerful in business, for most of us, that just wasn't enough. Like our mothers and grandmothers before us, we also wanted husbands who would be our best friends. Deep inside, if the truth be told, we really wanted to get married. The romance, the gown, the flowers, the presents, the honeymoon, the whole package. We didn't want to give up our liberation, but neither did we want to come home to empty apartments. Again, there's this reference here of passing it from friend to friend. This just sounds so much like they're talking to someone like Meghan. We had grown up dreaming about being the president of the company, not the wife of the president. Doesn't that sound like Meghan? I can see why this book would be appealing to her because it's exactly her narrative. She wanted to be this empowered woman who didn't need a man. And yet at the same time, she wanted the gown, the flowers, the presents, the honeymoon. And then she's fighting it like, no, I didn't really want it. We got really married in the backyard 3 days before the wedding. So I can see maybe this is an internal conflict with Meghan. And this book summarized it in this paragraph that you want to be single, independent head of a company. And then at the same time, you do want these things. It's surprising to me that there is this one line here that says, like our mothers and grandmothers before us, we also wanted husbands who would be our best friends. How can you find a husband that's going to be your best friend if everything is a game? And you'll see that as we go forward. Like as I'm reading this chapter, it doesn't make any sense that using these techniques, your goal is to find your best friend. The book continues, if you think the rules are crazy, don't worry, so did we. But after much heartache, we came to believe that the rules aren't immoral or outlandish, just a simple working set of behaviors and reactions that, when followed, invariably serve to make most women irresistible to desirable men. Why not admit it? We needed the rules. 90s women simply have not been schooled in the basics of the rules, of finding a husband or at least being very popular with men. Their narrative doesn't make any sense because I thought the original author followed these rules and then decided to share it. And then it says, if you think the rules are crazy, don't worry, so did we. Did you though? I thought you used it. Anyways, the book continues. Soon we got bolder and began to talk louder. These rules, they worked. Although they were old-fashioned and unflinching, they were extremely effective. At first, we were uncomfortable with some of the premises, which seemed to fly in the face of everything we'd been taught about male-female relations. But there was no getting around it. Success talked. We swallowed some of our preconceived theories, following the rules faithfully, and watched as so many of us got married. Okay, let's stop there. So that's telling you that their goalpost is we watch people follow the rules and get married. It doesn't say they were healthy relationships. It doesn't say they were long-lived marriages. Just we watched people do it and they got married. We don't know the consequences of that marriage. We don't know the inner workings of that marriage. So how can we determine if it was successful? The book continues, there we were, a secret underground, sharing the magic, passing it on, doing what historically women have done for each other since the world began, networking for success. This time, though, the stakes were larger and the victories were sweeter than any corporate deal. We're talking marriage here, real, lasting marriage, not just loveless mergers. The result of doing the rules, the simple rules, the how to find a swell husband rules. They make it seem like these rules are just mythical, that they're magic, they're passed on in secret. I don't know. Let's keep going. For years, we had been sharing them with the women we knew, both at home and at work. For years, women had been calling us to check up on points. Did you say that you have to end the date first, or he does? I forget. Well, you and I know the answer to that based on what Meghan did, but let's continue. Then one night during a Chinese dinner in Manhattan with a few of our single friends, we heard Cindy mention something about these rules that she'd heard from a friend in California. We knew it. There could be no mistake. These were the same rules one of us had followed in New York to find her her wonderful husband. The rules had crisscrossed the country, bouncing from woman to woman, from suburb to city, until they came right back to us over egg rolls in Manhattan. Oh my gosh. Like, yeah, they are creating this myth that, oh my gosh, can you believe someone in California was talking about this? Well, we better get these written down. All right, let's continue. We're almost done. But, and here's the catch, Cindy got them wrong. The rule says men have to end the date first so they're in charge, said Cindy. No, 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 wrong. The rule is you end the date first so that you leave him wanting you more, we explained. It was then we decided to write the rules down so that there would be no mistakes. So that's the end of chapter 1. And I mean, I'm just rolling my eyes through most of it. I don't know if you are also. I don't know about you, but I don't want to play games with people romantically or in friendships or in partnerships or at work. I feel like I've done that my whole life and that's just I'm done with it. Come as the real person that you are. If you're busy, you're actually busy. You don't have to make it up. You don't have to use it as a manipulation. And that's what it comes down to here, right? This is incredibly manipulative, what we're reading. I wanted to give you 3 things that I thought were maybe toxic or manipulative. And the first is this emotional manipulation disguised as empowerment. So in part of the chapter 1, she said she made men wait nervously, playing hard to get. And then all this talk about ending the date first, so you leave him wanting more. The rules is basically teaching manipulation, not connection. You're taught to withhold affection, create artificial scarcity, and treat dating like a chess game. That's not empowerment, that's emotional control, and it's dressed up like it's femininity. If the entire foundation is about controlling the other person's perception, is that really confidence? Or is it fear in disguise? If you believe that you need to end a date early, making up an excuse to leave because you think he'll call you later, to me, that's just fear. That's not confidence. It's a completely different thing if you're really busy. But that's not what this book is teaching. This book is saying make it up, basically. The other thing I notice is this reinforcing external validation over internal alignment. We didn't want to give up our liberation, the book says, but neither did we want to come home to empty apartments. The goal here doesn't sound like it's joy, fulfillment, or even connection. It's about not being alone. The authors are framing marriage as the ultimate prize, regardless of the quality of the relationship. It pushes women to choose validation instead of alignment. And look at the reality of it. You can get the ring and still feel completely unseen because being chosen isn't the same thing as being cherished. There's also this feeling of mistaking self-respect for performance. There's a difference between having standards and performing detachment. Yes, it's true that being overly eager too soon can make people pull away, but genuine confidence doesn't require theatrics. The rule encourages rehearsed behavior and not actual and real boundaries. There's a fine line between self respect and strategic withholding. One is grounded and the other is scripted. I'm really curious to know what you all think about this. This is the first time I'm doing something like this. And to be honest, I tried to see if anyone else had ever done a review of this book on YouTube, and I don't see it, like chapter by chapter review. So I think we are entering some uncharted waters or territory. I'm very excited to share this with you. Please drop your thoughts, your comments, your beliefs, your opinions in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and you're looking for a meaningful way to support something beyond the screen, I'd love for you to consider making a donation to the National Domestic Violence Hotline in lieu of super chats and super stickers. They provide 24/7 support and resources for people in unsafe or overwhelming situations, whether that's emotional, physical, or just hard to name. Their information is here on the screen should you need to reach out to them. And you can find a link to donate in the description of this video. Every little bit helps, and it means a lot. If this video was interesting to you, please like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you'll know every time I drop a new video. I want to thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.